and welcome back to the Travel Mug Podcast. Today I am fangirling a little bit. I'm really excited to chat about travel hacking with Barry Choi, an award-winning journalist, personal finance expert, media consultant, brand ambassador, and columnist for the Globe and Mail. So many things. Barry's website, Money We Have, was one of the inspirations for my own blog back in 2017 when I started We'll Save for Travel. So, hi, Barry.
Howdy, good to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited. So, to kick things off, why don't you tell us why you started learning to travel hack, how you were introduced to it, and for people who might not really even be familiar with travel hacking, what is it?
Well, simple explanation with travel hacking to begin with, it's basically using points to save on travel. And, I started doing it 15, 16, actually probably longer than that years ago, mainly because at the time I was in my mid to late 20s and travel was expensive. The irony is like I would kill for those prices these days. Are you kidding me? Like looking back, it's like it was actually so cheap. Like now it's expensive, right? So I started blogging for fun in the personal finance space, and just because I like to travel, it was kind of like my niche. The credit cards, it kind of fell into my lap because when I started the personal finance blog, that's kind of when affiliate sites started to pop up. And because I was writing about personal finance, people were like, hey, can you write about credit cards? And because I was writing about travel hacking, they kind of linked it together. So again, 15, 16, 17 years ago, there actually weren't a lot of credit cards. So now these days we have so much choice. But again, it's things have actually gotten significantly harder these days.
Yeah. So I would love for you to tease us, for anyone listening. What are some of the coolest experiences or trips that you've had that points have paid for, or at least partially paid for?
So the biggest one for sure is I flew Emirates first class from Dubai to Toronto. Yes, that is the one with the shower in the sky. So this was about just like right before COVID. So 2020, I literally was on the plane back, and that's when they shut down Canada. But at the time, there was like, I wouldn't say a loophole, but there was just a really good value. If you booked on Alaska Miles, it was only like 120,000 points for a business class flight. And to give you some perspective, like that same flight now would cost you close to 1 million points
Whoa.
on Aeroplan.
Whoa.
So that's like, the fanciest thing I've done. But, to me, points is when you can really get something meaningful out of it. And what I mean by that is, 2 years ago, I took my parents and my brother to Hong Kong. We flew business there. We stayed on the hotel. On points, my parents are getting older. The reality is like they probably won't be traveling much anymore. So me and my brother, well, it was just me really, decided to treat them. Of course, my mom on the way back, she had this taste of luxury. She's like, "Oh, this was so nice. We should do it again sometime." And I'm like, "Mom, like I burned all my points for this trip. This wasn't meant to be a yearly thing." And of course, my daughter is so spoiled. She's 8 for those who are listening. Um, we fly business class all the time. So even we went to Orlando 2 weeks ago, and before we got on the plane, she was like, "Do we get those seat beds this time?" I'm like, "No, it's like a 2 hour flight. Relax, girl." Uh, because we had flown it to Europe, and like, I've got some pictures of her just hanging out. So the points have been incredible. I do admit it's become a lot harder, especially for the business class flights, but at the same time, there's still a lot of value in the game if you know how to play it.
Yeah, yeah. And what would you say is your background in terms of leading you to this space? Like how did you sort of get here? So you mentioned you've been travel hacking for quite a
Yeah.
long time now. Like what's your background?
No background whatsoever, which is funny because I used to be a TV director in
Okay.
Toronto. There's a station called City News. I used
Yeah.
to direct the 11 o'clock news. And essentially what happened is when I started the blog is they laid off a bunch of people, but they had to keep me because I was a director, but I actually had a lot of free time. I was just directing fewer shows. So let me just start up a blog. My parents were immigrants, so they taught me the value of saving money. And like I said earlier, I started doing the travel hacking, writing about it just because it was like my niche at the time. No one else was really writing about it. So that kind of became my thing. But, I've been doing this for close to a decade. So even though I don't have any formal credentials, I've been writing about finance for major publications for a decade. I'm literally a columnist for the Globe and Mail, which I'm super proud of. I mainly write about loyalty points and credit cards, but it's just nice having an outlet where I don't need to worry about affiliates or what this bank thinks of me. I can really just give my honest opinion and really educate the public.
And that's what people are looking for. And I think that people value in a lot of things, maybe not a doctor and stuff, but I think experience is really what people are looking for. Someone who has lived it, someone who has done it. And if you can share that, that's the biggest and most important piece is in allowing you to be a trusted person that people can say, okay, he's lived it. Maybe I can do it too.
I think that's exactly it. I actually wrote an article recently, and I was kind of slamming influencers to a certain extent because, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great influencers out there, right? Some mom influencers, some lifestyle influencers, but when they start talking about credit cards and how great these perks are, which is partially true, they're not telling you the whole story. Are they telling your audience how to use them responsibly? What happens if you don't pay off your credit cards in full and on time? So there's a lot behind it. In the same article, I alluded to the fact that I literally held 20 credit cards. I have more than 20 credit cards right now. I think I applied for two this morning, just because I was like, oh, it's going to sound terrible, but I was like, oh, I haven't applied for a credit card in a while. I should probably get another one, right? So I just kind of looked. I was like, yeah, this looks good. See what happens. So there's a lot of that. And then what's really interesting is I have written for almost every major publication website these days. So there's some big name ones out there that compare credit cards and talk about points accurate. But the funny thing is a lot of them are written by people who don't even live in Canada,
Mhm.
may have never even been in Canada. A lot of these sites are owned by American companies. They have, or an international company, they have a Canadian division. They might have one or two staff members. But in the last year or two, they've laid off most of their Canadian writers. They use their international teams because it's actually cheaper labor outside of Canada. US freelance writers are like a third of the price of Canadian writers, so they just use their writers. So you could be reading this review and they could be talking about how great this credit card is. Number one, they've never applied for that card. They've never held it, and they may have never even been to Canada. So you really got to be careful about where you get your information from these days.
Yes, I love that. So, in terms of travel hacking, we do have to start at the beginning, which is you need a credit card essentially
Yeah.
to travel hack. So, it's kind of keeping it generic, but how do you suggest that people start researching and comparing credit cards?
So it really begins with actually where you want to travel to, right? So whenever people reach out to me with questions and advice, I ask them some general questions. I'm like, where do you want to travel to? Where do you live? Like your home airport, and how much do you spend each month, right? So where you want to go is the easiest part, right? In theory, because let's just say you want to go to Asia or Europe. Well, for most Canadians, airplane's the easiest way to get you there, right? So then you want an airplane credit card. But if you live in Alberta and there's a direct flight, maybe WestJet makes more sense. Or if you're flying within Canada, doesn't even matter, right? Could be Porter, could be WestJet, could be Air Canada. And then when you start thinking about your home airport, like I was saying, Alberta, Toronto, where you are, could sway your decision making because if even though Porter might have a great credit card, which they do, if you're at an airport where Porter doesn't fly from, like what's the point of the credit card, right?
Right.
It makes no sense. And then how much you spend on a monthly basis is really relevant these days, mainly because the welcome bonuses now require you to either spend monthly or to spend more. So if you're not spending a lot on your credit card, say you're only spending $500 a month, it probably doesn't make sense to get like a premium credit card, right? You might just want a no-fee credit card. So all these things you need to consider. I know it sounds like a lot, but if you answer those three basic questions, you can really quickly narrow down what cards to get. And then once you know, it's like what's the best bonus available.
Yeah. So, what benefits do you suggest that people look for when choosing their first card? Are there certain things that you might have people look for?
Like our welcome
I
bonus is the
Yeah.
thing. Like,
For me, it's always going to be a welcome bonus. We are
Yeah.
talking about travel hacking, right? So,
Yeah.
so to give you a good example, a lot of people talk about the American Express Cobalt card. Without a doubt, it is the best daily credit card. It gives you 5 times the points on Eats and Drinks, 3 times on streaming services, 2 times on public transportation, and 1 times on everything else, right? But the annual fee is, I think it's like $12.99 or $15.99 a month now, and they keep changing it, right? Or whatever. So the welcome bonus for the Cobalt is 1,250 points each month when you spend $750. So that's a total of 15,000 points. But the American Express Gold Card, even though it only gives you 2 times the points on Eats and Drinks, the welcome bonus is 5,000 points per month when spending $1,000. So you're only spending $250 more, but you're getting almost 4,000 points more per month. Plus, there's additional bonus where if you spend $4,000 in the first 3 months, you get 10,000 points. So in total, that's 70,000 points versus 15,000 points. And I know that sounds like a lot of mumbo jumbo to a lot of people listening right now, but to give you like the most basic uh, explanation is 70,000 points is worth $700 versus $150 at 50,000 points. But better yet, if you transfer those points to Aeroplan at a 1-to-1 ratio, if you live in Toronto, you could probably get a return trip to Europe in economy for 70,000 points. So there's a lot of value there. And I'm sure we'll talk about it later, especially with Aeroplan. But like, if you know the basics, you don't need to know everything. If you just know two or three programs inside out, you can save quite a bit.
Yeah, I think that's where a lot of people get hung up is they feel the need to learn everything before they
Yeah.
start. And I know that's how I felt. I was like, it's overwhelming and like there's all of these things that I feel like I need to know. And really, you kind of just need to like start and figure it out as you go along.
Yeah, it's no different from personal finance and investing when you think about it. A lot of people don't want to invest because they're worried. They don't know everything. And quite often it's like you just got to start investing and then you'll kind of figure it out along the way. And a points game is the same thing. If you've already got a credit card, you probably are halfway there when you really think about it. If you've got a cashback card and you want to get points for travel, well then you already know you need to change cards, right? So this is not the card, it's figuring out which card. But quite often, most people are just coming to me and asking, "Is like, these are the cards I have. How can I do better?" And the reality is, and I don't blame anyone for this whatsoever, is most people are still banking with whoever their parents banked with to begin with. They got older, they still have that bank account, they got married, but they merged their finances. That might be the only time you change banks, right? If you merge your finances with your partner, you might switch banks. But generally speaking, most people will stick to the same bank. And a lot of people don't even realize that you don't have to bank with, say,
No.
TD Bank to get a TD credit card, right? Or even some other myths like American Express isn't accepted everywhere. Yeah, that's technically true, but American Express is accepted in so many places these days, especially if you're doing most of your spending in Canada. So there's a lot of value out there, and way too many people get obsessed over the annual fee. And it's like, listen, if you're getting more value out of that card, whether it be travel insurance, points, or whatever, like the annual fee should not matter to you whatsoever. But way too many people, they see that price and they're like, I don't want to pay for it. And I get it, but it's not a rational way of thinking.
Yeah, and I think that that's true because the annual fee can be a mental barrier for
Yeah.
people, and I know that it is true. But even we had an episode about it, but even in my own personal experience, having the RBC Avion card, we used it for car insurance, and we actually had a rock break the windshield, and it covered everything, and it made our money back like for years to come, in terms of like that annual fee. So I think that if you can get past that, you're exactly right. It has to be doing something for you in return, and it won't matter quite as much. I have to say, mentioned spending X per month to get those welcome points over time or whatever the case might be. Are there things that people could be putting on their credit card that they're not right now in terms of expenses? Because I just sort of think of my monthly spending and I kind of think I spend too much money, but I don't think I'm spending that much. So, like, how do you suggest people build up those points on a monthly basis to actually benefit them? Is there anything else they could be doing that's outside of the box thinking or?
What you said about like not realizing you actually spend more is bang on, right? A lot of people think it's like, I only spend like $1,000 a month. I don't spend that much on my credit card. I'm like, you know what? Track your expenses for a month or two, and then come back and be like, oh man, I spent like three times more than I thought I do, right? So it's very normal. Or even if you rent, there's now companies like Chexi where you can pay your rent and earn points, even though they charge you a fee. If you're doing it just to get a welcome bonus, it can be worth it. If you're doing it just for the sake of it, it's totally not worth it, right? Your points are rarely worth 1.75% each. Um, but to me, it's just like charge as much as you can, or just to understand the game. We're talking about earlier how you should understand each program or a few of them. So with Aeroplan, they've got an Aeroplan e-store. I don't know if you're familiar with this, where if you shop through them, you get extra points. So whenever my wife is like, "Hey, I need to order something from Amazon," I'm like, "Make sure you go through the e-store first, or anything. Like, make sure your cards are Starbucks is connected, Uber is connected.
Yep.
Um, everything should be charged to credit. And to be fair, people do spend more if they charge everything to credit. It's very easy to lose track of these things. If you're going to play the game, you kind of need to pay a little bit more attention. But if you've naturally got expenses, if you've got kids and they're in camps or extracurriculars and take credit card, then it's like, yeah, if you got to pay with the credit card anyways, and you know it's going to cost you a certain amount, you're like, oh, I might as well get another credit card and take advantage of the bonus. It does require a little bit of maintenance in the sense that you need to record when you sign up for these cards and remember to cancel them before you get caught up in all those annual fees. Uh, but there can be a huge value. The sad part is these days is the value is decreasing quite a bit.
Yeah, I used to work in the travel industry back
Yeah.
in like the early 2000s, and the
Okay.
benefits and the bonuses back then compared to now are just
Oh,
it's
they were giving away points back in
yeah.
that day. Are you
They
kidding
were
me? There
giving
was
away
like
everything.
when I first started CIBC, it was hilarious. They had like the Ventura cards, and back then you could transfer them to Aeroplan. But like each card was giving like 40 to 50,000 points. They were waiving the annual fee. You only had to spend $1,000, so you could literally get like 150,000 Aeroplan
Oh,
points for spending $3,000. It was like the easiest thing in the world, right? Again, this is nearly 2 decades ago, but this is, and I was talking about that Emirates flight I took with Alaska
yeah.
Airlines. People listening in were probably like, where did this guy even get Alaska Airlines points from, right? It's like such a random niche thing. Um, but the funny thing is, it's like back in the day, there was Alaska Airlines credit card available to Canadians, which made no sense because unless you were living in Vancouver, it's the only place that Alaska flew to at the time. But on top of that, Marriott Bonvoy, or actually it was Starwood back then. This is even before Marriott bought them. You could transfer your Starwood points to Alaska. They had this crazy deal where it was like if you transferred like 150,000 Starwood points. You got a 1 week free night certificate. You got like 50,000 points with select airlines. Like these things do not exist anymore, but those
Oh,
things were like absolutely crazy. You're like, what? It's like, so I remember I used that free night certificate, which was for a week for like when my wife had our daughter. We went to Amsterdam and stayed at a fancy Marriott there. I was in Amsterdam recently. I was like, I can't afford this now, even though I've been travel hacking for 10 years, right? Like it's so sometimes you see these things and I don't want to say abuse, but you should definitely take advantage of them. And we could
yeah.
talk about some other things that I've abused or people have abused that are long gone because I think some of them you'll find absolutely hilarious.
Well, it's like talking about like the old days, like how things used to be kids 20 years ago. And I think that it
Yeah.
has changed so much. I would like to go back to a point about what you just said about getting cards and understanding the program of the card that you do have, etc. I do find, and I'd like for you to talk about this, that you have to be responsible in the way that you are, know yourself. Know that you're going to have all these cards with these annual fees, when to cancel, like you mentioned, etc. So I think responsibility and being someone who is fiscally responsible may have to play a role in this as well.
Definitely because like I said, it doesn't matter how many points you're getting or what the return is. It's like it's never going to be worth more than the 20% interest you're paying on a
Right.
credit card. Like it makes no sense, right? Um, but even something basic, like you really need to research these cards and what you're getting and what these points are going to offer you. I was talking about influencers earlier. In this article I wrote for the Globe, I wrote like 5 years ago, a bunch of travel influencers were promoting a certain credit card because it gave them $400 every single time someone signed up. And listen, I don't blame them. Like, it was stupid for these credit card companies to give so much money. For reference, most cards give you $100 per sign up. So it's like four times, right? So yeah, you would promote it. Um, but then people were signing up because you could transfer these points to Singapore Airlines and you could fly their fancy suite or whatever. But all the travel influencers failed to mention that it's actually really, really difficult to find those suites. So what happened in the end is people had all these points, so it's essentially nowhere to go because, yeah, technically you could use it on other travel, but this program also had another weird rule where you had to um, redeem at least 20,000 points. So there's all these fine points that people had to pay attention to, and a lot of people did not. So yeah, you got to be financially responsible, no doubt about that, but you also need to really understand the programs. And another thing I want to mention, because this really meant a lot to me for the wrong reasons, is like I said, I've been writing about loyalty for quite a few years, and for the Globe, and a random reader just wrote to me and said, "He's like, hey, I collect American Express membership rewards points. I like to redeem them for Air Canada gift cards because it allows me to use them on whatever I want when I want. I don't need to worry about dates or whatever, right? Sounds good in theory, right? So I regretfully had to inform the reader that it's like, well, you've actually devalued your points
Hmm.
in two ways. Number one, you can actually transfer your points to Aeroplan at one to one, and it'll almost always be a better value. Number two, American Express allows you to actually redeem your points on any purchase, no devaluation whatsoever. But when you redeem for a gift card, the value drops down to zero point 0.6 cents per point as opposed to 1 cent. So he was devaluing his points by 40% simply
Wow.
because he didn't know.
Mhm.
And he was very pleasant. He said, "It's like I had no idea. Thank you for telling me. I'm never going to make these transfers again." But this is what I mean. You really need to understand these programs and what you're getting because you can shoot yourself in the foot, really. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So when you're opening a card and obviously going for that welcome bonus that we were talking about, how do you keep track that you're making sure that you're hitting these welcome bonuses?
It's a spreadsheet.
I love a
That's all.
spreadsheet. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That's all it is. Like you need to straight up. I've got like a basic spreadsheet that says which card, what data applied, what's the minimum spend requirement, and then I've got a tab that says, did I reach it? Yes or no.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's just that simple. And for a lot of the cards where I know I'm going to get it just for the welcome bonus, I as soon as I sign up, I've already set a calendar reminder to cancel it in 11 months. I know some people listening will be like, "This guy's crazy," or if any banks watch this, they know what I'm doing. I talk to them. Some of the PR people I deal with, they laugh until it gets serious, then they send me a firm email. So that's another story.
That's a whole different episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When do you recommend folks like get a second, third, 20th card?
Yeah, that's a great question. So generally speaking, I tell people you want to have at least like a minimum of two credit cards, and this should be obvious, but it's not. Like in case your one credit card doesn't work, gets lost, compromised, whatever, you always want to have a backup. So it could be like a Visa, Mastercard, an Amex Mastercard. It's just two different cards because you go to Costco or No Frills, I think they only take Mastercard, so you want to have a backup card just in case, right? But to me, you should get a card depending on your goals. If you know you're going to go to like say Europe in 2 years and you need 200,000 points to get there, well, there's your time limit. There's your 2 years. You do the math backwards. What cards are currently available? Can you meet that minimum spend requirement? And honestly, sometimes there are some offers that are so good, you're just like, you just sign up now, no questions asked, right? I'll tell you one right now. Like I don't know when this episode's airing, but right now, the TD First Class Travel Visa Infinite has a welcome bonus of 140,000 points. You do
Wow.
need to spend $7,500, which is a lot. There's no doubt about it. But you get 6 months to do it. The first year is free, right? So essentially, you're getting $700 in points just for signing up for this card. Normally, I like Aeroplan and Amex points, but like I admit, like this TD offer is really, really good. And it's funny because like the previous offer, like when they had it this high, you only had to spend $5,000. So you can see these things are creeping up and up, and it'll eventually get higher. So if you naturally can spend I think $7,500 in 6 months is pretty reasonable. In fact, that's even better than the American Express Gold Card offer right now, and the annual fee is waived. So again, it really depends on your goals. Having flexible points is always good if you need like a random hotel that's not part of a major chain or car rental. So having points diversity is never a bad thing. But to get back to your question, I just apply whenever you feel it's right or when you've got a purpose. I wouldn't apply just for the sake of it. Well, actually, I do that all the
You
time.
just did that today, Barry.
Twice. Yeah, yeah. It's funny. Like I wasn't doing it intentionally. Like I was just like, oh, you haven't applied for a card in a while. Anyways, that's it. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love. I wish I could have been a part of that mental conversation. That's hilarious.
The worst part now is like we were talking about how these bonuses have gotten worse, and it's like it feels like my standards are getting lower and lower, right?
I think that people think, oh, obviously $7,500 in 6 months, it might be a lot to some people, but if you're planning like a wedding, if you're planning
Not even that. You're like
renovations,
home
like,
insurance, car insurance, like
yeah,
my kids' gymnastics. It's ridiculous how much you spend, right?
Yeah. No.
yeah.
So right now, if someone out there listening, could be me, Barry,
Yeah.
if you could recommend a second credit card to anyone right off the top of your head, if they only are riding with one right now, is there one that you sort of go to recommend?
So generally speaking, I'm all in on American Express. The gold card right now is the best one. Like I was saying earlier, the welcome bonus is worth up to 70,000 points. So minimum value of $700, but you can also transfer your points to Aeroplan or Marriott Bonvoy. So I like Amex cards because they give you a lot of flexibility. But before you even get to that point, you got to think about your first card. Does it still make sense in your wallet? Should you transfer to something else or use up your points? like we were saying earlier, a lot of people are just banking with their original bank when they were kids, and it makes a lot of sense. There's a reason I don't talk about RBC cards often because even though the cards aren't bad, they're also not great. RBC is the biggest bank in Canada. They know it. There's no business case to make the cards any better. They're like, no, we'll keep this card. Everyone's still signing up. But you look at everyone else, TD, Scotiabank, Amex, they've all improved their cards. So they're really big on customer service. Whereas I feel like RBC quite often is just like, no, we're good.
And that's my card now. So that's really great advice because I
Yeah,
am one of those people that was my hometown bank. So that's
I
really
get
good.
it.
That's really good information for me to have because we used my Avion points a couple of years ago or last year and went to Amsterdam. So now we're working with my husband's and we put everything on his to build
Yep.
those points there. But I think it is smart, great advice to have that second card and sort of branch out a little bit. I really like the idea.
Yeah, and even with Avion, like here's another trick. If say people like, oh, I'm gonna switch to the Amex, what am I gonna do with my points? So what you could actually do is like switch to no fee RBC Ion card, which has no annual fee. Just got like a placeholder, and then when you're ready to use those points, you switch your card back to the Avion card. And the reason you want to switch back is because when your points are in Avion, they're worth more, as opposed to Ion, the value is lower. So between those two cards, RBC allows you to switch them no problem.
Okay.
And again, like a normal person wouldn't know this, right? There's no
Right.
reason why you would know this. But
I
at the
didn't
same
want to
time,
invite a normal person onto this podcast. That's
yeah,
why
yeah,
we
yeah.
invited you.
So this is why it's kind of fun to know. And let's be clear, it's not just about travel credit cards and travel points. Like PC Optimum, the biggest grocery store loyalty program. A lot of people don't even realize that you don't earn points on every purchase if you're in the store unless you have a credit card. I've had people say to me, it's like, yeah, I've been collecting PC Optimum points for 10 years and I've only got 2,000 points. Like, what's going on? It's like, I'm like, do you have a credit card? They're like, no. I'm like, well, then you're only earning points on targeted offers and in-store promotions. So it's very specific. And a lot of people know that you can use your points at Esso to redeem some money off of gas, but the best value is actually for a car wash. So you can redeem any 10,000 points for any car wash at Esso. Um, but like the deluxe car wash is $22. So that's a $22 value versus $10 you would get to grocery. Like you're not going to get an infinite amount of car washes,
Right.
maybe into winter. But the point is, if you have those points and you know it's a good value, maybe you wash your car a few extra times in the winter because you're like, this is actually a really good value. My car looks like awful right now. It's just snow all over the place. So again, this just goes back to what I was saying. Like, just know the value of what you're getting, or know two or three programs inside out. One travel, one gas, one grocery, and you're good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Love that.
I think that's really great advice. I want to circle back to building up your points. And we talked about welcome bonuses. We talked a bit about like online portals. Is there any other way to kind of like build up your points?
Uh, well, it's really just about putting all your spending on your credit cards. Obviously, welcome bonuses will always be the best anytime you've got partners. But other things too, and it really depends on the program. So with Aeroplan, there's family sharing. So my parents, they don't travel very often, but when they do, if they're flying Air Canada, I make sure their number's on it so we can pool their points and use it. Well, Air Canada is going more like a cash-based program, so it's not going to be as relevant. Uh, but the point is, you don't want to leave points on the table, right? So if you get your family involved, or even say you're tight with your parents and you know they're going to have a major purchase coming up, you offer to pay for them, and then they pay you back. Uh, I don't expect my parents to know every single credit card coming up, but I do tell them like, I'll pay for your insurance, I'll pay for whatever, and then they just send me the money, right? Then because they're old school, they hand it to me in cash, right? It
Of
makes no
course. Of
sense.
course.
I'm like, you can just like tell them to deposit it right to my bank account,
No.
but
No.
it's too much. That's more work. And yeah.
Amazing. So let's talk about the fun part, which is redemption. How do you make sure that you're using your points in the most effective way that you can?
So most of my redemptions come via Aeroplan, and I've got like a very basic, like I personally consider one Aeroplan point to be worth 1.5 cents each,
Okay.
right? So when I do the math, it's basically you take the cash value of the redemption, you subtract any taxes that are associated by that redemption, times it by 100, and then divide it by the points required for that redemption. So if it's 1.5 or higher, it's a good value to me. right? If it's anything less, I just pay cash, right?
Mhm.
But because the Euro plan uses dynamic prices, prices get changed on a daily basis. So to give you an example, I was talking about how I flew to Amsterdam earlier this year. The flight ticket cost me about 140,000 points, which sounds a lot, but for dynamic pricing, it's like meh, acceptable, right? The value of that flight was, from a points perspective, was about 2.3. So not the best value, but still obviously better than that 1.5 I was telling you about. But because of dynamic pricing, I was looking for the exact same route for 2026, and it's now 300,000 points. So it's more than double the value, so which greatly reduces the value from booking business. However, if I were to book economy, the value was like close to two. So it's one of those things where you can kind of tell they're probably doing it on purpose. They want people to pay cash for the business seats. They don't want people using the points. For that to take up those seats. So there are still ways around. I generally think premium economy is a good value for a lot of places these days. So you really need to understand the value of your points, and it goes back to that story I was telling you about how the reader didn't know about the different values of your points. Or even you were talking about RBC. So RBC Avion's got a pretty decent travel rewards program, but you could argue the best value is actually using it for their financial rewards. So if your mortgage or your TFSA is with RBC, even though your points are redeemed at a lower value, in the long term, because you're getting that guaranteed return, paying off your mortgage or investing in the long term with your TFSA, it could actually be worth more. So
Sure.
it really depends on the person, right? But it's just how many people even know that you could use your RBC Avion points, BMO rewards points on financial rewards. Not many people know that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Changing
Yeah.
lives.
Amazing. So I'm sure lots of people want to know, and we've talked about how it's changed a lot. But how do you find flights for low points? Do you have any tricks?
So I'm just a trial and error guy. Like I searched. There are some better tools out there these days. Seats.aero is the big one. Everyone knows about it. That's the problem. There's so many people subscribing to that site. Getting them for low is pretty hard these days. But generally speaking, I like to be flexible with my travel. So if I know I need to go to a destination plus or minus 2 or 3 days, what time I fly might not make a difference. But I will say that it's like need to kind of monitor these things somewhat regularly. Obviously, like that Seats.aero website I was telling you can send you alerts, especially if you're paying for the subscription, is obviously convenient. Um, but if you ever see a low price, you should just book it right away, right? Because you still have 24 hours to cancel. Sometimes like I say, you see this price, you're like, this is too good. I need to book it right now. To give you a good example is I was casually debating LA. Like I don't know if you guys are into Disney, but D23 is a big event that they hold every single year.
She's
And
your
I
girl.
was yeah. So I was like, you know what? Let me just look up flights. I'm just curious, right? And then I was like, yo, a premium economy flight on the exact dates I need are only 20,000 points each way. So it was like I just booked it right away. I was like, forget it, I'm just booking it. Right?
Right.
Worst case, it's like go to LA for like or Orange County for 5 days. Uh, but I still had like a window where like I talked to my brother. I booked two seats. I was like, do we want to go? We got 24 hours to figure this out. And like we said, it's like, well, it's a cheap flight. In the worst case, we'll just go hang out. We'll take a 5 day break on the West Coast. Not the worst thing. Maybe it was cheap because there's less demand for the US right now. 100% that could be part of it. Because for like I was looking at May to fly out to Vancouver, and it was like twice the price in economy. So it's just like you just never know what's gonna get. It's like 40,000 points to fly economy Toronto to Vancouver. It's like no, thank you. And it's like it's crazy, but that's the way dynamic pricing works.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously this is a super high level kind of overview of getting people thinking about travel hacking. So where can people go to learn more? What do you offer in terms of resources?
Everything for me almost these days is on Instagram. Barry underscore Choi is my main. It's like I've got a lot of old resources on my website, moneywehave.com, but honestly, I haven't updated a lot of it in a while. Every Friday on Instagram, I do an AMA, so that's usually the best place to bug me, or you can just send me a DM at any time.
Awesome. Amazing. So I think that is it for this episode. Thank you so much, Barry, for joining us. This was very interesting and useful information, and I can't wait to refine my strategy even more. So as for us at the Travel Mug Podcast, you can find us on social media at Travel Mug Podcast, on our website, travelmugpodcast.com. If you like what we're doing here, you can support the show through Buy Me a Coffee, and the link is in the show notes for that. And it was great to chat with you all, and thank you, Barry.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.